Hi everyone, this is Kirsten Bachman coming to you from Valley City, North Dakota. And today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial of how to use one of my favorite teaching tools, which is VoiceThread, which integrates very nicely and, from my perspective, smoothly with Blackboard, as well as a variety of other learning management systems, including but not limited to Canvas, Moodle, and I believe Brightspace or D2L. Again, there might be others, but those are the ones that I know for sure. As I go through this tutorial, I will be using one of my most recent classes. This is my Introduction to Psychology course that we just finished. Actually, it was a 3-week intersession course that my institution here, Valley City State University, just tried out, and it seemed to actually work really nicely. I do use this assignment, which is an expert presentation at the end of all of my courses, whether they are upper division, lower division, face-to-face, hybrid, or fully asynchronous, or 100% online, as was the case with this particular course. Now, depending on which version of Blackboard or other LMS you have, you might need to add this as a tool in your menu. So I'm going to demonstrate that briefly in case that's something that you end up needing if you decide to infuse this into your courses. So in order to do that, you'll click on this add menu item, and it is a tool link here. So I usually just call mine VoiceThread. You're welcome to call it something else if that makes more sense to you and your purposes. And then it is alphabetical, so I just scroll down and choose the VoiceThread from the menu options here. Just a quick note that you always want to make sure you check this box to make it available to users. Without doing so, your students will not be able to see it. Now, never fear if you accidentally forget to check the box where you think you have, but you haven't. There is a quick way to do that once it's added into your course menu here, but it's easiest to do it this way. So then you would just hit submit, but I already have this, so I'm going to hit cancel at this point. And as you see, I do have this VoiceThread. When I click on this, the initial time, VoiceThread will give me 3 options. The first is that I can link to an individual VoiceThread if I have already created one. As an example, I do usually do an introduction video to demonstrate to students how to use the tool. You can also send the students out to our course homepage within the VoiceThread program, and that is what I typically do. You can finally have the option to send students to their own homepage. Now, just a quick word of caution if you choose to do that route. If students have not previously utilized this tool, which many of my students, when I get them, have not, they will see nothing other than perhaps the one or a few voice threads that I have shared with them as a result of them being in the course. So again, I will click on this link and it will take me to this external page here. And you can see, again, some of my students have posted, but I'm going to show you today how to add your own or how to create a new voice thread, which is here. The other option, again, after you have started amassing or your students have started submitting voice threads, is that you can select from an existing list of your own. But today I'm going to focus on how to do this from scratch. So the first option here is that you're going to be able to add media. Now, this is one of my pet peeves and probably my biggest complaint, and maybe my only complaint of this tool. This is not a screen capture software. And what that means, if you're not familiar, is that anything that you have displayed, as an example, PowerPoint slides, on your screen will not be recorded. It will simply record your video feed and nothing on screen. So to get around that, you will always, if you do have such a file, you will always need to locate that file. So it's a 2-step process, which is a little bit more cumbersome, but my students have found it relatively straightforward once they know that that is the process. So you would do that by finding and selecting this file from the My Computer, which I will do in just one second. But these are the other options. If you have an existing media source, this would be perhaps like an MP4. If you have a video that you've already recorded, you can simply pull that in as opposed to the My Computer link. If you want to have only audio but no video, which I strongly discourage, this is because I want to recreate that live interaction as much as possible. This is a really good opportunity that I view for students to hone their public speaking skills, and people can see you when you are in that environment. So this is an option, but I strongly discourage students from using it, and I don't use this option myself. If you were to select the webcam photo, then you would just simply take a single picture of whatever the camera on your built-in device would take. But the one that I use most often, if I don't have slides, is the webcam video. So this would simply record audio and video, again, using whatever built-in camera your device has. And then here's another option if you were interested in sharing some sort of web link. You can select the URL right here. But again, as I mentioned, I'm going to show you how to select a file so that you can add some PowerPoint slides. I'm just going to pick this abnormal psychology, and I want to draw your attention to the background where it says processing. Now, assuming that your internet connection is stable, whether you are on Wi-Fi or plugged into a landline, this process should not take very long. And as you are waiting, you can fill in the box that has popped up here. So the title, sometimes my students are tempted to just put their name in this area, and I discourage that because that's not very descriptive. It is in the case that we know who is presenting, but we don't know what their topic is. So in this case, I will call this my abnormal psychology lecture. I don't require a description, but it can be helpful and useful, especially if you start to amass some similar voice threads here. So I can call this my chapter 15 lecture slides and presentation. And then another option here is if you want to add tags. Now, a note about accessibility. When I first started using VoiceThread several years ago, you had to go to a separate site, which was VoiceThread Universal, for there to be live captions. But now it has captions automatically built in. So we're definitely making progress in the accessibility realm, which I'm very pleased about. Now, there's other playback options. So I do usually have these by default checked. So allow commenters to add slides. You can actually uncheck this, especially if you don't want it to be confusing to students who are maybe uploading their own slides and then a classmate ends up adding their own presentation on top of someone else's. So you could simply uncheck this box, and you can see in the background there, my slides have loaded, so I'll go to those in just a second. Allow others to download the original media. This can be useful because, as I'll demonstrate, sometimes the formatting gets a little bit off with slides, particularly when they are uploaded. And so if you allow students to have this box checked to download the original media, then they can view the slides the way that the person actually intended them. I do also allow them to export. And if you check this box, then as soon as someone clicks into that particular voice thread, it will start playing. You can also uncheck that box. And I'll talk about these comment methods more when I demonstrate that in just a minute. And then I do have some students that are very creative with the title page or the title slide that they upload their own, art. Whether it's a file or they might find some stock folder. or file online, but I don't usually do anything with this myself. So again, the title is the only one that I require, and then if students prefer to do a description, then that's fine. And I've done that here for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to click Save here, and what you can see is in the background here, my slides have uploaded. Now, if I click on this big plus, then again, it's going to allow me to add some other media. It's going to be the same options that I already showed you. What I like about this is if you have, as an educator or as a student, if you have slides or whatever media from multiple sources, then you can pull from those individual sources and put them in the same VoiceThread. Now, I don't usually do this because I have them all in one place, but I do like that that's an option. Now, if I were to save this in this step 3 here, share and return to the course, then I, at this point, do not have any audio or video in addition to my slides. So if I were to just create this VoiceThread stopping where I'm at, then there wouldn't be any additional information. It would just be the slides alone. And as we know, that's not as effective. So you can click this comment piece, and this will open up different options, which I'll display actually in a different VoiceThread. But I do want to draw your attention to this step 3. Sometimes students believe that they have shared their VoiceThread when in fact they have not made it public to me and or their classmates. So this is a 2-step process, and I do try to highlight that in a similar tutorial that I share with all of my students, because I recognize this is a new tool that most of them have not used before. So if they click here and then just click this X, they actually haven't completed the process. They do have to click this other box, submit and share with the group. And then now what you'll notice is when I go back and I click, it will bring up my first slide. Now, any VoiceThread that someone accesses will have this option here in the middle, and that's to make a comment. So there are 5 different options. Again, you can go back and change that if you don't want all of these options where I had showed you when you're first creating that VoiceThread. But you can have students give students the ability to type the text comment. Now, when I have students comment, I do ask them to type several sentences if they choose this option. They can use their phone if they like. I've never had a student do that, but it is available. They can just record an audio comment. Again, for similar reasons as with the VoiceThread itself, I do discourage this and much prefer them to do a video comment. But if I have someone who is incredibly hesitant for some reason to do the video comment, then I will allow them to do the audio, because I do find that to be most important in addition to wanting to see them. But if that creates, an undue amount of anxiety, then I don't want that to have, the negative experience for the student. And then finally, if someone has taken the time to perhaps write out in a Microsoft Word document their full comment, if they would, instead of writing in this text box, then they can upload a file. So I just want to point out that every single slide you can add comments to, and you can add multiple comments. So this is how you would create it if you had just uploaded as I have here. As well as this is how students, when they are reviewing each other's work, can comment at particular places in the presentation. So if I click this arrow, then it's going to go to the next slide. Then I can add audio/video information to this particular slide, and so on, when I can keep going and going. You can, as you notice, embed. However, this is not a clickable link, so you have to provide that. The most simple way that students typically find to do so is through the comment feature, and then in a text box they can include that link. But you can still have that open in a different window and play it. And so I've had some creative students do that as well. So as I round out my tutorial here with this video, I just wanted to give a few suggestions about the way that I use VoiceThread. Again, I do have an introduction, especially in my fully 100% asynchronous online courses. This is helpful for students to get to see me and hear me, and I just can give a little bit of personality so that it's not just, me typing behind a screen and never get to know my students. This is also a good way for me to demonstrate how I use VoiceThread so that when they have the assignment, that they can go back to that as a guide if they should choose to do so. And this is a culminating project that I have found has been very successful, again, with a variety of students. I have a pretty open-ended assignment that I use in my courses, which is in any way that they can. And I've had some creative students make connections that even I would not have found myself. They choose a topic and they connect it in some way, whatever way makes the most sense to them, to something that we discussed throughout the semester. So as you can see, we've got somebody who did something on conversion disorder, and then another student who was, I would say, one of my most creative students, which is the connection between baking and psychology. Now, I do have a very extensive rubric that I provide. I do have some students who, when they see the flexibility, are sometimes a little bit hesitant and, might email me or set up a meeting because they're unsure just how truly flexible I am with the topics. But most of the students do appreciate this opportunity to apply what they have learned in a really unique way. And I do have that rubric that I'm happy to share with you. I'm also happy to share any resources that might help you and or your students. My pedagogy is based very heavily on sharing of resources, and I really appreciate this opportunity that my students get to share with me and each other the ways that they see psychology in various ways throughout their daily lives. So again, this is a tutorial on VoiceThread, and if your institution does not subscribe to it, it can be, from what I understand, costly. But maybe this would be an opportunity for you to advocate for your institution to look into any options that they might have to purchase a site license for you and your fellow colleagues and students, because students do seem to really get a lot out of this tech tool. So again, my name is Kirsten Bachman, and I'd be more than happy to connect with you if you have any questions or would like to see any of my resources. And I hope that VoiceThread is a useful tool for you and your students, as it has been for me and mine.